From Little League to the big leagues and everywhere in between. From one stage to another. Passion is my middle name. I'm J.J. Davis. This is In Focus. You know, you think you know a guy, and then you do some research. You do your homework. Well, this gentleman will always and forever be to me a football coach, no doubt about it. Sitting to my right, on the sidelines, where he's been now for a while, would you say, Sandy, is a guy in Omaha, in the metro area, that everybody knows. Sandy Buda. Sandy!
JJ?
How's that golf game coming?
Going downhill fast.
Not the story of your career, though.
Well, but golf is going downhill.
All right, well, talking about uphill, 1945, your father, Carl Buda, wife Lucille, your mom, he plays in the college football all-star game in front of 92,000 fans at Soldier Field against Curly Lambeau, ring a bell, and the Packers. He played all 60 minutes. Your old man.
Yes, he did. That is a great story. Something that's never happened before. He's the only guy, supposedly, until it ended, that ever played all 60 minutes because a backup got hurt in practice.
So you got to say to yourself, with that pedigree, you knew nothing or knew somewhat of sports growing up as a kid in South Omaha.
Well, of course, my dad was a big influence. That era, you either went to school and you played sports. And sports was a big part of my life. Football, basketball, baseball is just something you automatically did.
Now, I've asked this question before of guests. Were you the big freaky kid, was just bigger than everybody else, or did you have to work at it? Were you talented? What?
I had to work at it. I wasn't that big. My dad was only about 5'11", and of course, he played in the NFL, but linemen in those days weighed about 240, and that was my dad.
It's a different time.
Yeah. But no, in high school, I was a 180-pounder and had to gain weight when I went to the University of Kansas to play football and baseball.
180-pounder, all-state in football and baseball, played for the comeback champs. I spoke to Jack Deasing, 1962. And Jack Deasing was a tackle, and you were a...
I played end, linebacker, and sometimes guard, depending on the game.
What do you remember about those days in high school?
Well, they were obviously the greatest part of your life is in high school. You know, you're carefree, you don't care about money. you just want to play sports.
That's right.
And that's the great part of it. But a lot of memories. And guys like Jack Deasing and we're great teammates, and we're still best friends, and we still get together every month and have a pop or two and lie about how good we were.
Because it's always a pop or two, and the older you get, the lies get even bigger and better, don't they, Sandy?
Yes, they do.
How does Kansas come calling?
Actually, I went to them. Coach Devaney, I wanted to play football and baseball in college, and Coach Devaney told me no baseball if you're on a football scholarship. And so I kind of started researching around in Kansas University. When I contacted them, they said, yeah, we've got guys on the baseball team that are football players. And that attracted me right away. And my dad and I flew down to Lawrence. Jack Mitchell was the head football coach then, a former player from Oklahoma. And we just kind of hit it off well and visited with a baseball coach, Floyd Temple, who had been there a long time. And he says, hey, we need you. And that was enough. And of course, KU is a good academic school at the time, and we're winning at the time. And so I just felt comfortable there, and it was only 200 miles away.
You were junior class president in 1965, but also on the field of athletics, what? 3-year starter in football and baseball. You seem a little embarrassed.
Well, the politics one was probably the most embarrassing thing. I had people come to me and say, "We want you to run for class president." I said, "You got to be kidding! You got to be kidding! I'm not a politician. I'm from South Omaha." And they said, "No, you got some name recognition," and I end up winning.
How about that? Were you surprised?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
All right, so you graduate, and you're going to pursue your master's degree, and old Pepper Rogers comes up to you and says,
Well, he asked me if I wanted to help coach as a graduate assistant. And
what did he see in you?
I was recommended by Don Famborough, who was an assistant under Jack Mitchell, and he recommended me to Pepper. Pepper didn't know anybody at KU when he got the job, and so I ended up accepting the graduate assistant along with Terry Donahue.
That's right.
So there were two of us, and we were roommates together, and I ended up introducing him to his wife.
How about the stories that you learn on this show? You were GA on the freshman team,
Correct.
Dick Tomey, John Cooper, etc. That's a lot of coaches. That's over 700 wins. What a coaching tree.
I was very fortunate to get to see and be around some guys that really knew what was going on. And as you mentioned, 7 of them became head coaches off that 1968 Kansas staff, and all were very successful. And I was just lucky that I remembered some of the stuff when it was my turn to become a head football
That
coach.
KU Kansas team in '68 won the Big 8 championship.
Yes, won the Big 8 championship. Lost to Penn State in the Orange Bowl in 1969 on a 12-man defense.
We always remember those plays, don't we, Coach? We
Yes, we
remember
do.
the losses more than the victories.
Yeah, yeah.
So you spend 8 years at Kansas. Then you go to the rival, K-State?
It was time for me to leave.
Oh, here we go. Story time, Sandy.
Well,
Buda.
in coaching, you got to move around. And I had been on offense all my 8 years as an assistant at KU. And Ellis Rainsberger, who got the job, who was an assistant at Kansas when I played, hired me, and he says, "You can coach on defense." And I said, "That's what I want to do to get some experience on that side of the ball." And so that's why I end up being a traitor and going down to Manhattan, Kansas.
So basically, you spent 3 years there, 11 years total. In some school in Omaha, Nebraska comes a calling, the Mavericks, baby, head coaching job, and you say to yourself, why not?
Well, it was my hometown. It was my head high school football coach who was the athletic director at UNO, Don Leahy.
Yes.
And it's hard to turn down your mentor when he says, "I need you." And so I decided to give it a try and moved to Omaha. And my wife wasn't real happy about it.
Well, the wives are never happy
Yeah.
when you're nomadic like broadcasters and coaches.
Right. But it was a good experience, and I'm glad I did it. And I still today say that's the best level to coach on, especially now with the NIL and the transfer portal. That's the level to coach on, because that's real coaching for the right reasons. Those young men are there to get an education, have fun playing a sport while they grow and develop.
So 4 years at UNO prior to your coming, 11, 29, and 2.
1160 and 2.
I stand corrected. Sandy Buda gets there, 8 and 3, Division II playoffs, first season.
It was a great experience, and I was lucky. Bill Danenauer, the former head coach, left me 2 sons and a bunch of good players, and that I inherited. So I had a big advantage getting started because there were already players there, good players.
What kind of coach? Screamer? I don't see you as a screamer, or maybe I didn't know you way back when.
You didn't know me. You did not know me then. I probably couldn't coach nowadays based on the way I coached then. Times have changed, and good coaches are people that learn to change with the times.
Correct.
But I was more disciplinarian than the easygoing player coach.
So the Mavericks win 2 North Central Conference championships. He's a 3-time Coach of the Year. After 11 seasons, your overall record was 84 and 48. Did I get that right?
12 seasons, but 84.
12. Coaches, they remember everything. What made you leave?
Well, it was a situation where I just felt like I had done enough. Maybe it was time to look at something else. And I decided to go ahead and give up football for a while. And it didn't last very long. Riddell hired me right away, Riddell Helmet Company.
Sporting goods company.
Yes.
Two of them you worked for eventually.
Yeah. And I said, this is a good opportunity to be around sports and people that I already know and get into the business world. And so that's what I did.
But then you come back, like 6 years later, the Snow Bowl, whatever, you're coaching in a college all-star game? What happens?
Again,
story time, Sandy Buda, here we go again.
It was just one of those situations where I get a call. A guy named Ross Forchie, who was at Morehead State, was heading up this new Division II All-Star game that was going to be played in the Fargo Dome in Fargo, North Dakota, and wanted me to be the head coach of the East team. And I said, hell, I know a little bit about coaching. So I did that for 3 or 4 years, and it was a lot of fun.
And then what, 9 years later it was? What was that indoor team called?
The Omaha Beef.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. I knew you'd know that.
They are still in business. The only indoor team that's had the longest streak of staying employed in indoor football history.
From 2000 to 2004, the head coach, Sandy Buda, leads the Beef to 4 consecutive playoff appearances, and you were once the coach of the year. What do you remember about coaching indoor as opposed to outdoor?
A lot of fun. It was fast football. I had to learn a lot. We had a whole coaching staff that had never coached indoor football before, new players that had never played indoor football before. Luckily, I was able to recruit some pretty good players from Nebraska. Calvin Jones, Clinton Childs.
My gosh!
Some good players from UNO, Bob Wagner and Lamar O'Neill, and that set the stage to really put together a pretty good football team.
And then once again, Sandy Buda takes a hiatus. What's like 9-10 years? 2014, a professional team. The Mammoths, I remember those days because I think I shot them.
Well, the Riddell kind of helped me with that. When the team was announced they were going to have a team here in Omaha, I went to the owner to see if he buy my football equipment, the Riddell equipment. He said, "Why don't you coach us?" Oh my God. And I got sucked in. But that was a good experience.
How had you changed from your early days as a screamer to an elderly head coach?
I did change. I was inheriting for that team guys that were the last cuts in the NFL and free agents from the NFL. All of them had NFL experience.
So they're still hungry.
They are. And it was a good experience. They knew that was their last chance. And that's the way I kind of coached them. I just said, guys, I'm not going to scream and holler. This is your last chance.
I remember that.
It's your last chance. So, play hard, volunteer for the special teams, do what you can, and don't look back.
And they didn't. So in the end, you're in 4 sports Hall of Fames around the state. Sandy, what's your legacy?
Oh, hopefully that I was a good coach and developed young men. That's the biggest thing I'm proudest of, is to see so many of my former players who are doing well in business and doing well in the professionals, doctors, lawyers, dentists, teachers and coaches, firemen, policemen. That's my legacy.
In fact, you've dedicated your book, The Riverboat Gambler, to all the guys you've coached and all the guys you played with. That says it all.
Well, again, there's been some pretty interesting guys that have been around, and I just felt like, I should acknowledge them.
Well, I'm going to acknowledge that it's just great to have had you on our show.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, JJ.
Sandy Buda, he is the guy. Highly respected around the area. I used to see him all the times at the top floor at the College World Series. That's right, Sandy. So coming up next, someone who I respect also very, very well. Her middle name is Grace, Omaha's own Queen of Soul, after the music. Now, you've heard of a triple threat, actor, singer, dancer. How about a quadruple threat, actor, singer, dancer, producer? How about a director as well? I mean, why not? Let's throw everything in. Joining me right now, and not from behind a table like I'm always used to her, in all her glorious glory, is Miss Everything to Everybody, Kathy Tyree.
Good morning, JJ.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
You are everything to everybody.
I am not a dancer, though. Let's be very clear. There are choreographers all throughout this city that would be like, oh, no.
But as we all know,
I'm a mover.
When
I'm a
yours
mover.
truly tried it, it just takes you a little bit of time.
Right. If they just give me a little time.
That's right.
It just takes me a little longer than everybody else.
Now,
Yeah.
during this time, you are simply known as, or were, or still are, Omaha's own Queen of Soul.
Yes. That kind of originated with Beehive. I was in the original cast of Beehive here in Omaha back. Gosh, I was 26 years old.
26.
26 when we
26.
started. When that show first started, we were in the Howard Street Tavern in the Old Market. Gordon Cantiello produced it. And I will never forget, it was 6 of us. And 1960s musical, he could not give tickets away. Literally, could not give tickets away. So one night, we had opened the show. He went and stood on the sidewalk in front of the Howard Street Tavern.
Wow.
And just told people, you want to come in and see a free show. Come have a drink and see a show. Come have a drink and see a show. 6 weeks later, lines around the building.
You know, that reminds me of my TV days when we used to do MOS's, Man on the Street, and I used to have to get out there and get opinions on a certain story. And I'd called myself P.T. Barnum because I was a barker trying to get people. That is an interesting story. And I'm not surprised with your talent because
Well, no, it was 6 of us.
well, I've seen you and heard you, and I'm sure you're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with, I've always said. You surrounded yourself, what, at 13?
15. I started when I was
Morning Star Baptist Church, you were a singer in the choir.
you went all in my history. Okay.
Kathy, it's kind of my job. It's kind of what I do. Morning Star Baptist Church in the choir. That's when you found out something about yourself.
Yeah. I wanted to sing in the choir long before that because my mother was a singer.
Kath, that's right.
Amazing.
Shirley Tyree.
vocalist, Shirley
You
Tyree.
do a lot to your mother. She died 4 years ago.
Yeah. And I wanted to sing in the choir. I couldn't start singing in the choir until I was 13 because they wore black. And I wasn't allowed to wear black until I was 13 years old. I know. So I couldn't sing in the choir. And then I got in the choir and I was under the direction of Glenn Burley, outstanding composer, went on to do fantastic things. He is no longer with us. One of the songs that he is most noted for, gospel songs, is Order My Steps, sang by the incomparable Mimi Red, but he was my choir director. And he forced me out of my shell as a singer. And I mean, literally, he and I would go back and forth. I don't want to lead a song. You're going to lead a song. I don't want to lead a song.
But then you weren't necessarily forced, but asked at age 15 when you were at Omaha Tech, hey, why don't you try out for the Wiz?
Yep. Mr. Jim Eisenhart.
And you said it was then that you got the bug.
Yep, and that's where I got the bug. Mr. Eisenhart was, who has gone home as well, fantastic director of theater. And even as teenagers, we were not treated like amateurs. He treated us like professionals. He had that expectation of us, and the bug bit, and I've been doing this ever since.
Age 19, ain't misbehaving. National theater competition, center stage,
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
Then an international theater competition.
Yeah.
Ended up in Japan.
Japan.
Wins again. You said that was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, because I had the choice of doing that or a different competition that I had won honors and was going to go and compete for.
Man.
And my mom was like, you choose, you can't do them both. And I chose to do this show at a little bitty theater in South Omaha called the Center Stage. Had no budget, beautiful folks worked there. They put on some of the most beautiful shows. It was over on 30th and Q. And we did the show, and the rest was history with those competitions. Omaha fell in love with it, got behind it. We got sponsorships that allowed us to travel to these different competitions throughout the country. And we ended up in Toyama, Japan.
That is
Yeah.
amazing. That's just a life's experience in itself.
Yeah, yeah. And so, like I said, it forever changed me. That bug bit. I didn't want it to stop. And I've been doing it ever since.
You have been forever changing lives. You've had a long and esteemed career at the Omaha Community Playhouse, Director of Inclusion and in Community Engagement.
Yeah.
And you now have a similar role with the Rose Theater.
Yeah. So now I get to do it with little fellas. And I primarily work with the staff at the Rose Theater, but I also get the opportunity to direct shows there as well. And so I had the honor of directing you in A Christmas Story, and then again in Milo Imagines the World. And yeah, and so it's very different. TYA Theater, Theater for Young Audiences, is very different. Kids are so brilliant, and they are so fearless. Like they'll just try whatever you ask them to do something, they'll just try it and go for it.
So which do you prefer? Because you wear so many hats. Do you prefer to be behind the stage, in front of the stage? You've also sung with the Omaha Symphony.
And I'll be with them again in July.
I know that's coming up. What do you prefer?
I enjoy them both, and I am appreciative that I'm still able to do both, meaning I'm still able to be on stage and act. I think because, and I say this all the time, because I am an actor that directs and a director that acts, it keeps me mindful of the ask on both sides of the table.
Right.
As a director, it keeps me mindful of what I'm asking of those actors who are not only in that space developing their craft and honing their skills to tell this story, but they have a whole life outside of there. And they're dealing with life outside of there. Some of them are working all day. Some of them got kids at home. Some of them have sick parents. Just all of these things. And it just keeps me mindful of actor care. I'm really, really big on actor care. As someone who, works in inclusion and equity, and that's all a part of it, is making sure that actors feel seen and heard and valued and cared for.
Well, I must say, I know that firsthand, because to me, you're always so calm in the space, in the rehearsal process. You're just so calm. You just keep everybody grounded, and regardless, everything's going to be okay.
Yep.
Okay, 2014, Kathy Tyree Productions.
Yes.
Production company, your own?
Yes.
What's that about?
Yeah, so I launched Kathy Tyree Productions in 2014, and I started producing live events. So we would get booked to do banquets and conventions, and we've played houses as small as 200 people in the room to 2,000 people in the room. And I haven't produced as much lately.
I wonder why.
Because I'm in rehearsal spaces quite a bit.
Right.
But I'm still open to it. I'm still available for it. It just has to fit in the window, in the schedule.
There's another thing that, as we look through the window, that means something to your soul and to your heart. The Union for Contemporary Art.
Yeah. So when we talk about my directing career, it birthed out of the Union for Contemporary Art. Denise Chapman, who is the artistic director there, saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and she pushed me into the director seat through a stage reading, which was a huge success. And then she introduced me to Kevin Lawler and Great Plains Theater Commons.
Just had Kevin Lawler on our show.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
And so Kevin kept inviting me back to direct for the play festival that they do every year, which is actually happening this week.
As we're taping this show.
Taping this show. And then from there, I started getting directing offers from doing these stage readings and people seeing my work. I also performed at the Union for Contemporary Arts. It's in North Omaha, which is where I grew up, which is where my son grew up there, my mom grew up there. And then in 2023, they were blessed to build a theater space. And our family was so honored that they put the request in for my mother's name.
That's right.
To go on that theater. And so, yeah, they just launched their season.
That's got to break your heart every time you see your mom's name, Shirley Tyree.
Yeah, yeah. She was pretty incredible.
She helped you. She pushed you along.
Yeah.
She encouraged you.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, I knew her well while she was here on earth. I know her so much better now that she's gone.
You've also said, you know, I'm not a perfect person.
Nope.
But I want to act right, be right, and most importantly, be a blessing to people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to me that anybody that encounters me always leaves me better than they came. That's my thing. It's just, I don't ever want to do harm to anybody. I don't want to make anybody feel bad. I don't ever want to make anybody feel less than. And because we're all human, sometimes we do misstep and sometimes we do make those errors, but it's important to me that when you become aware of it, backtrack and make it right. Do what you can to try to make it right.
Well, you're trying to make it right now because you're currently in production.
Yes.
I always used to say, and still like to say, I love being in rehearsal. You're in the rehearsal process at the Shelter Bell Theater.
Yeah, well, we start those rehearsals next week.
Okay.
My first equity contract as an
right.
equity artist.
I remember when you told me you joined Equity. I remember when you told me this.
Yeah, and so actors here in Omaha, we tend to hesitate to go equity and become equity artists because of this fear that we won't be able to find work here.
Right.
And I committed to this show in 2024. And so when I got my equity card, I reached out to Shelter Belt and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to do this show. And I'm paraphrasing, it was a back and forth conversation. I'm equity now, you're gonna have to find somebody else. And they were like, no, we're getting ready to make
Why
this work.
am I not surprised?
Smallest little theater in town.
That's right. But you
Smallest
matter.
theater
You
in
matter.
town.
And also, tell me about the holiday extravaganza.
Well, there's one before that. The first time you will see me at the Union will be the last week in July during Native Omaha
You're
Days.
busy.
I'm doing Northside Carnation, which is a play written by Denise Chapman about Mildred Brown, who founded the Omaha Star. It's a one-woman show, and it takes place in her office, which / was her house, on the night of the riots in 1964. And so I'll do 3 performances that week during Native Omaha Days.
And then around the holiday season, quickly.
I wrote an extravaganza piece that I'll be directing there at the end of I won't be in it, but I'll be directing it.
As I said, and as I stated from the very beginning, in all her glorious glory, she is Miss Everything to everybody. Kathy Tyree, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, I know I'll probably see you down the road, either in front of or behind the table, that's for sure.
We're going to be on stage together
I
one
would
day.
love
I'm
to.
claiming it right now.
Kill to do that. So yeah, thanks for joining us for another edition of In Focus with J.J. Davis. And as always, as I like to say, Kathy, I'll see you around town.